Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Life Conversations with a Twist. I am very honored to have Kimberly on the podcast today. We just met, which is like a lot of my guests, but we were trying to put together how we got connected, and it was a very interesting story. And then we also just discovered we both live here in Sonoma County, which is always cool and exciting, but how we got to meeting each other was very unique. And so I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm so happy to be here and excited to, get to know you better too.
Absolutely. So Kimberly and I just met because the team that helps me and supports me with my podcast, Kimberly knows her as well, and she connected us because she thought that your story would resonate on my podcast, and then we have some other mutual connections, which is crazy. So let's get started. Tell everyone a little bit about where you live, who you are, and a little bit about your life.
Okay. So I'm from Sonoma County. Originally, I was born and raised in San Diego County.
Hmm.
And about 20 years ago, when I met my husband, my previous husband, he had passed now, but he was living in Sonoma, California. And, you know, I'm a dentist. But I'm also a businesswoman. I am a hiker and now an author. And I love learning every day. And so um, I have a dental office in Sonoma still. And about 5 years ago, my husband passed away from cystic fibrosis. And he was an avid person that loved the outdoors. And he had a double lung transplant. That's the twist, And he had had a double lung transplant for 21 years. And we always knew that he was going to pass away sooner than I. And so we had little, things that we would do. He would kind of be really hard on me for certain things so that I would learn how to be able to survive on my own. So about 2 years ago, I decided to take him up on what he had challenged me to do when he passed away. He said, Kim, I want you to write, about me and my story because I'm not going to do it.
Mhm.
And so I chose to help um, create a lifestyle for businesswomen that have had the same kind of experience as myself. And I wrote a book that was a fictional novel that, you know, people think it's me, but it's really kind of like a superimposed me.
Mhm.
And I teach people about survival in the wilderness, as well as survival, after your loved one passes away.
Oh, I have so many questions to dive into. First, I want to ask you about your practice. How long have you been doing dentistry? Am I saying it right? Dentistry.
Yeah, I've been a dentist for over 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so my dad was a dentist also, and he actually still is a dentist. He's 81 and he still practices. So I have longevity in my blood.
And then how many people are on your team?
I have 9 people on my team right now.
Where did you meet your husband? Did you guys meet when you were living in San Diego and then he convinced you to move to this beautiful Sonoma County area? Like, how did you guys meet?
So we both were in Las Vegas
Hmm.
and we met each other at a sushi restaurant. He was with his friends, I was with my friends, and you never think that you're going to meet anybody quality in Las Vegas because you're there to, whatever state you do in Vegas stays in Vegas, supposedly. Well, I was fortunate enough to meet him and his friends, and you know, we hung out and we got to know each other, and he came to visit me in San Diego a few times, and then he ended up moving down to San Diego because he wanted to pursue me, I guess. And then, we were dating for a while, then we got married. And then 5 years after we got married, he says, I don't want to live here anymore. I want to move back to Sonoma. Plus, you know, at that time, he had already had his lung transplant,
Oh,
and it was his doctors were already, in this area, Stanford, UCSF, and he had to transfer his files to San Diego. Obviously, they do have a good team down there too, but they weren't his team. And so he had a little bit of setbacks. And so I thought, you know what? At age 40, I can do this. I can change my uh, location. If I did it any later, I wouldn't have done it. But age 40, I had 12 years down my in my belt, under my belt, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna keep my business down here, fly up there, try to find another location, and then will be as it may, what will happen to my other practice. Maybe I'll keep it, whatever. So it ended up that I mentored the person that bought my practice down in San Diego. I kept flying back and forth for 6 months to help her out and train her and so forth. And then I bought a location in Sonoma where I was a partner, and now I'm the full owner of the business. It's Synergy Dental Group.
wow, what a great story. I would love to chat about cystic fibrosis because I don't know a ton about it, and I would love the listeners to kind of get some backstory about how I think that how your life has obviously changed and kind of, living with somebody who has it. So cystic fibrosis is something you're born with, correct?
Yes. And at age 3 years old is when my husband had gotten diagnosed with it.
Okay.
He always his parents told me that he wasn't gaining weight. He was always having like loose stool, not being able to breathe very well. It was sinus mucus and digestive. And so cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder and disease that you're born with, and you don't have the gene to for the cilia in your lungs and your, sinus to move and pull the mucus and toxins out of your body naturally. So it all builds up. And eventually, all of your organs start fibrosing and they start getting hard, and because they can't get the mucus out or the toxins out. So at age 24, he was trying to live a normal life in college. His parents couldn't keep track of him anymore, right? So then he went out to go party and wanted to be normal. So his lungs got worse.
Mm.
And so at that point, he had to be on the lung transplant list for about 2 years. And he actually wasn't heavy enough to get the lung transplant when they called
Mm.
because his dad told him to put rocks in his pockets to get weighed so that he could be of weight to
Uh-huh.
get the lungs, which can't do that. Anyway, there's about uh, when I went to a thoracic, I sometimes I go to these continuing education courses for dentistry, and it's combined with the thoracic people because I do some TMJ work, I do some head and neck work, and that kind of thing, and sleep apnea. So I was introduced to the pulmonology team as well as the thoracic society. So at that point, they were having uh, lectures about cystic fibrosis. So I went over to the booth and I was talking to the gals about all the medications that he was taking at the time. And they told me that there's only 200 lung surgeries, be it double lung or single lung, within the United States in a whole year.
Wow. So
So
it's very hard to get one.
very hard to get one. And it takes a long time to be on the list. It's over 2/3 of your body. It depends on a good match. And nowadays, instead of just taking the lung and transplanting it, they take the lung and the heart. So when my husband had his, it was only the lungs. And he always wished that he could, do it again. So he kept, his whole mission was to stay alive, be brave, stay alive. And, he said it was like breathing underwater every single day, even with the new lungs. So he actually decided that he was going to try to get another lung if he ever, needed one. But at the point where he was even like, you know, 2 years before he passed, his lungs still hadn't deteriorated enough, but he was at the point where, oh, he couldn't like do as many things.
Mm.
Now, that's another story too, because most people with his lung transplant situation, double lung, they can barely actually have a normal life, barely like ha go out and go shopping or do stuff or, not an 8-hour day job, let's say,
Because
right?
they're more susceptible to getting sick, right?
Yes. He'd always had, it took, he had his tackle box of medication.
Mm.
And I would say it was at least worth $50,000 a month to take these medications to live.
Wow.
And good thing he was on this assisted program with the state that took care of people with cystic fibrosis. Yeah.
When you get it doubled, so the obviously we have two lungs, so he basically in one surgery got both of his lungs removed and put new ones in. And this might sound like a silly question, but the donor, is it both of their lungs or is it like one lung
Oh,
from multiple
yes.
people?
So that's
I'm
so
always so curious by the science of all of this because it's
yeah,
kind of a
it's
wild thing.
kind of, I mean, we have to think, okay, some religions don't want to deal with lungs or organs transplants. They think it's not right. And, I was open to the fact that, okay, he's alive now and he has somebody else's lungs. This is how I met him. Um, Basically, it's a single person
Mm.
that gives up their lungs. And for the double lung, it had to be somebody that was freshly deceased.
That's okay. That was
And
the question.
so in the middle of the night, he gets a call. It was a motorcycle accident, about the same age as him and about the same height, weight, and so forth. So they said, you're next. Do you want to come right away? We'll get you in a helicopter. He hated helicopters to go from Sonoma County to Stanford. He says, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to drive. So it took him 3 hours to get there, but had he wanted to, they would have picked him up in a helicopter and transported him to Stanford
Because it was like one of those things that has to happen right at
within a
that time.
certain, yeah,
Hmm.
time frame. So it was still within the certain time frame. It was just 3 hours later. Then they prepped him and they got him in. And he has 5 really good friends. They all showed up to wait.
And what is the healing process like for that?
Well, it could be months, it could be weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He had to stay at the facility for about, I would say, I think 3 or 4 months. He had to stay very close to the hospital, so they had to rent a apartment
Mm-hmm.
next to the hospital, and his parents would be there. And his mom actually is a clinical research nurse. So she had to, she was all over the place flying around for her job. So his dad was the one that stayed with him. And he was the one that caregived to my husband. So his lungs lasted 21 years.
Wow.
The same, there was the same week that he got his done. he remembers two other people and they didn't make it past like a week or 2 weeks or a month. So it's
So there's
very
not really
delicate
it's not really
situation.
a guarantee.
No, it's not
Yeah.
a guarantee. You have to have a good match.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that happened was he started liking different kinds of foods. So they were saying, oh, is it the organ that wanted the new food, or is it just his new lease on life? There's a lot of different, scenarios of that. And people say, oh, maybe the first month or 2 months, your organs do they still want the same kind of food that your body used to have?
Oh,
I don't know. We don't
interesting.
know that, but
Yeah.
he started liking sushi. He started liking pizza and hot dogs, and supposedly he had not liked that kind of stuff before.
Wow. So you were with him during this time.
No,
Oh, this is all
I,
happened before you.
yes, I did
Oh,
not know him until 2021. And then he had already had the transplant like 5 years prior.
got it. Okay. So
He
you
looked normal to me.
hmm
When I met him, he was normal looking. All he carried around was the tackle box full of medicine.
hmm How did he I mean, he obviously had to tell you this. But like what was like his outlook on life? Because I feel like when you're in a situation like that, you kind of it's like you quote this on your website, like living life to the fullest. Like, was that his mindset of what his life should be at that point?
Yes.
Hmm
He did not want to kill a fly, a spider, or anything. He would always like capture it and let it out. When I went fishing, I liked fishing. When I went fishing, he says, hurry up and put it out of its misery. Like just he was so thoughtful about life
hmm
and such that whenever he felt good, he wanted to go out and do something. So he volunteered for Sonoma Search and Rescue for 8 years. No matter what he could do, he did it. He was in charge of the equipment. He helped the team in Sonoma County get like the quads and the 4x4s ready because we knew how to do that. Um, we had motorcycles. He had an ATV. He had one of those dune buggies,
hmm
Polaris, and we would go camping. But he would find things that he could do outdoors that wasn't strenuous. Like, let's say if we went hiking, he would, you know, have a little like scooter or something that he would go on. Or if we were out in the wilderness, we would take a dune buggy instead, you know, so that he wouldn't have to like be that strenuous, but he was still out there, found ways to still enjoy life in his own way.
hmm
And
What
he's
was
the
the
one that taught me
I was gonna
about
say,
lots of
well,
stuff.
and yeah, what was did your outlook change on life when you met him and saw his view on life? And how was that time period of knowing that he doesn't have forever to live? And kind of like what was your mindset during that time?
So I was already had my own practice. I already had my own dental office in San Diego, and I'm like the type of person that's like really into my business.
hmm
So when I met him, he was the part of my life that was like the calming part. He would do things and want to do things so that yeah, I thought about okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. Slow down, Kim. Get bearings in your life and live a normal life.
hmm
Would you say?
hmm
Because as a business owner, we're always thinking about our career and our life and how to, help it along and stay, because they say every for every new business, there's 9 businesses that fail,
Mm,
right? And
mhm,
so we have to be up on our game for like our businesses, yet we also have to balance our life.
mm,
So he would always want to be traveling. He would always like to like go, let's go camping. Let before it's too late, you know. And then before long, he did slow down. And I felt bad because I hadn't done as many things that I'd had liked to or would have liked to do with him because I could finally see that he wasn't gonna be able to do some of the things that he wanted to, you know?
mhm,
Like he traveled by himself a couple of times because I couldn't go.
mm,
And when I look back at it, I think, gosh, I should have gone.
mhm,
I should have taken that time. But in retrospect, you know, you can't say, I wish I could have, I wish I could have, and regret so many things. Yet I did a lot of things, new things that I'm happy that he was in my life for.
mm. How long were you guys together from the time you met till the time he passed?
20 years.
20 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What were like the final um weeks, months? I mean, with cystic fibrosis, it's not like an immediate thing, right? Is it a slow progression? Like what was his like final days like and what was that like for you?
The interesting thing is, his doctor told him that he was cured of cystic fibrosis after he had his lung transplant. Yet on his death certificate, it said he died from cystic fibrosis.
Hmm.
Yes. So, uh, in the beginning, it was like a normal life. In the middle, it was slowly, you know, slow down. And the last year and a half of his life. Remember, well, some of your listeners don't know this, but in Sonoma County, we had 2 huge fires,
Mhm.
2017 and 2019.
Mhm.
And I was surrounded. We were surrounded by like 5 or 6 different fires. We evacuated maybe 36 times. At that point, that's when his lungs started giving out.
Mhm.
And he started to have to be on a oxygen tube, you know, an oxygen tank for 24 hours a day. He would take himself off and go to Costco with his parents or his dad because he did not want to have the oxygen tank for an hour or whatever. It took him a lot to do that. And then he would come home and be exhausted for not having the oxygen with him for that long. But he didn't want to be out in public with his oxygen tank. And then maybe a month prior to his passing, you know, he had been in and out of the hospital for about 10 times that year that he passed. Then finally they said, you know, there's really nothing we can do anymore. He's going to be on hospice. And so it's either you keep him here at the hospital or now's the time to go home. Good thing he had a directive that said what he wanted and what he wanted to do because at that point he really couldn't talk very much. And so the hard thing is his parents and I had um, mixed had different differences of opinion.
Mhm.
And before that, we had always gotten along. But at that point where it was the time to take him home or leave him there, they wanted to leave him there closest to the doctors. But his directive to me is that he wanted to be at home
Mhm.
and pass at home. And obviously, since I'm the wife, I got my way, you know, to do that. But
Mhm.
they were really upset with me, and it was very hard because he could tell that we were arguing about it. And he would mouth to me, "Why the war?" You know? And so I was like, "Don't worry, we're okay. We'll get through this." And ultimately, I think in retrospect, I think they would probably agree that it was better that he was home, even though at the time they didn't, because they wanted him to be closest to the doctors.
Hmm.
But there was really nothing else. And to the end, the last day, every 3 nights that in a week, he would get on a Zoom call with his best friends, and they would just sit there and talk and chat with him. He had really good friends, really, really awesome
Hmm.
to the end, good friends.
Did
And they
he?
still keep in touch with me too.
Oh, they do. I love
Yeah.
that. Did he say anything to you near the end that is something that, because I know you had mentioned, like now after going through this journey, you're doing a lot different work. Like you still have your practice, but like your whole perspective on life and how to support people has changed. Was it something that he said that kind of changed your mindset to put more like love and thought through that?
So he had always been the Leo, the Leo, right? He was born in August, and it was black and white to him. Everything was black and white. It's either you're lying or you're telling the truth type of person. And he taught me so much. I thought, oh, I knew a lot, but in life, even though he was subtle in the way that he would explain it to me, at the end, I got it. Now, for instance, he was the one that made everybody laugh. He was the one that, kept everybody together like glue. He was very thoughtful. And now it's up to me to continue his legacy.
Hmm.
At the office, my team got me through the memorial, and we had fun doing it because he wanted certain things. And so I got my team to help, you know, bake cupcakes and make the pictures for his memorial. And they're the ones that got me up to go to work, really. And they're the ones that actually kept me going. Okay, room this, room that, go to room here, go to room there, so that I could even function
Hmm.
the first, few months. Even after that, too, I would say that I kind of lost my umph for being in dentistry for a long time. And what got me through is Mark and writing a book and um, living the way he lived, how he would treat things. And I take care of my team a
Hmm.
lot differently now
Hmm.
because they're my family,
Hmm.
really, and my dogs. Okay, so he had a dog that could smell when he got sick, could smell like sadness, could smell emotion or something. He could perceive it. And for the longest time, Roscoe, his dog, would sit there and wait for him to come home. And I started sitting in Mark's chair. The dog keeps staring at me, going, "What are you doing sitting in my master's chair?" you know? But, he was depressed. My dog was depressed.
Hmm.
And then I took him to a dog psychologist, and the dog psychologist like helped us out.
Aw.
Mhm.
So
And now I have,
you just have
yeah,
two dogs or one?
now I have a second dog, and that second dog really helps me get up go to, have a routine, go walk her every day, feed her every day, go for a walk when I come home. It keeps me busy.
Mhm.
And like I say to my staff and my clients and my patients, we got to keep moving. You got to keep on memorializing, or everybody has some sort of grief in their life. It could, be a spouse, it could be a best friend, it could be, your childhood friend, it could be your parent or your child, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and it's always going to be there. There is a grief journey. There's always going to be something. You're never going to be completely rid of it. It's always going to be there. Yet you have to learn how to live for
Mhm.
yourself, for your person, and how they would want you to live.
Mhm. So good. What do you say before we jumped on? I had said that there's a lot of people in my social media world or network and community who have either just lost a spouse or who is battling cancer. It feels really real right now. Like I feel like it's at least the people in my world, it's been more of a thing. What advice do you have for that person who is going through what you went through or going through this period of change in life for them that you've learned?
Well, I've learned that do what you want to do because you only have one life to do it.
Hmm.
And stay away from negativity. If somebody tells you, oh, you can't do that, oh, yeah, you can. You know, that's what I say. There's nothing that really is stopping you from doing things. So why not do the things that you want to do, be the person that you want to be, and have no regrets?
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. What about how has life changed for you? I mean, obviously you mentioned grief I'm sure it goes in waves. I see that it's gone in waves for people. It's, something will spark something or emotion or an anniversary or something like that. What what has kept you kind of staying focused and not, or allowing yourself to grieve that day, but know that you can't stay in that state and that you need to move forward? Like what kinds of things do you do to help that process?
So Mark wanted to be cremated, so I had his ashes, and you're really not supposed to like sprinkle things over. But for 2 years, I would go from place to place of things that we did together, places that we went, and I would just have him with me, in the little pouch a little bit, and I would sprinkle a little, okay, you're gonna be here forever. Okay. And it made me happy.
Mhm.
The other thing is, I started doing hobbies. I thought, okay, I'm gonna go catch a fish. I wanted to always catch this, a marlin, let's say. And I went to Cancun. All my girlfriends were doing something else, and I signed myself up to go on this boat to go catch a marlin. And I came back with a 75-foot wahoo fish. And so I did that. I went on a hike to Half Dome. I decided that I was going to be in a group and I was going to learn how to do like the hiking through Yosemite. And for 3 months, I hiked up and down Taylor Mountain and all these other mountains around our area, got ready, and I climbed Half Dome with 5 other people that I met, so you just have to keep yourself busy and going. And there's other people out there that probably have the same uh, things going on as you. Find them, and maybe you can have a new friend or a new hobby or a new something. In
Mhm.
fact, I've started a group here locally that we go hiking every Wednesday.
Mm.
And on the weekends, like I'll take people to learn how to fish or to trap shoot. or to hike, you know, and
Mhm.
that's what we're doing.
I love that. I always wonder this as somebody who is kind of on the outside, or it's like as a friend, you want to be supportive, or as a community member, you want to be supportive. But what advice do you have for that friend or that person who, when they're going through grief like this, like how can we support them, or what kinds of things do they need, or what do they not need, in order to feel supported?
So even if your friend says, no, I don't need anything, you could say, okay, even if you don't need anything, I'll be here. And if you just want to be silent, we can be silent together. Or, the best thing was my friends wanted to come and be with me. And at first I thought, no, I just want to be by myself. But I just let them come.
Mhm.
And sometimes it would just be they were just there and I was just there and we didn't say anything we just sat there, or we would just, silently be together. They might say no, but it's actually probably a yes.
Mhm.
So, and then maybe don't say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Just listen.
Mhm.
Listen to what they have to say. And
Mhm.
maybe they're going to tell you in their way what they want if they keep talking. And you just listen. Just
Mhm.
be great support that way.
I love that. What's next for you? I know, I'm sure not every day is perfect, and then I'm sure there's days that are harder than others, but because of this journey, what is the work that you're kind of shifting to now, and what does life look like for you now?
Well, I work 3 days a week as a dentist. And on Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I'm taking people out learning how to do something new. We're doing hiking, we're doing trap shooting, we're doing um, fishing. I belong to this outdoor club that I take people to, and we do that. And then I also have taken a group of people to Mazatlan and to Cabo for a wellness retreat. My next thing in 2 years, we're planning a trip to walk the Camino in Europe. So I have like a 5 day thing planned that, we're gonna get together and we're going to go from one part of the Camino to the other. Obviously, it's 500 miles, so we're not going to do the whole 500 miles, but we're going to go to Santiago from, through the Spain area down through and find the Camino.
That's so fun. So you're being adventurous.
Hmm.
I love that. I love that. I had a question for you, and oh, I know. How long has it been since your husband passed away? You said 4 years?
It's been since 2019,
Okay.
so five
Five,
years.
5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Do you have plans or have thoughts? And I think there's different timelines that this could happen, but I think when people lose a spouse, they almost feel like they can't start their life over with a new partner, or, obviously that comes in time when they're ready. But what are your thoughts on that? Are you searching for a next one? Are you open to it? Are you like where are you at? And then I think like the next question is how do you feel about people moving on from that?
Yeah. When I was fortunate enough, we talked about it before he passed. He always said, you're gonna find somebody new. I'm
Mhm.
okay with that. And if it could be somebody, it might be this person, this, this but no,
He already had plans
yeah,
for you.
yeah, no, but he really did want me to move on.
Yeah.
And so at this point in my life, I keep thinking, oh no, if I find somebody, I find somebody.
Mhm.
And yes, I've been on a few dates, but no, nothing really happened with those few dates. And I'm open to it. I just think if I find somebody and when I find somebody, it's going to be somebody that wants to understand that I've had somebody else in my life and is okay with me still having certain things in my life
Mhm.
that point to Mark. because I will always have part of him in my life.
Mhm.
A lot of times you'll find spouses, people that find others that have had another person pass away, or they were a widow in the past, and then they get remarried to another widow. That might be work as well, because then you know what's going on in that person's mind.
Mhm. I have a friend, she lost her husband and her new partner, he lost his spouse. I think they met maybe in like a group like therapy thing or something. They met somehow. Oh, I know what it was. It was a dating like a dating online app that's what people went there for. And she says that was probably one of the best things because they can relate to each other. They can support each other. And there's not like a jealousy thing. It's a very
Mm.
really cool. It's been really cool to see that journey through for her. So yeah.
Yeah, that would, and Facebook friends too, that
Mhm.
there's like these widow groups, that they they have travel clubs that they have together, or they have Facebook groups that are just about widows and widowers that I see a lot of activity on as well.
I think one of the things why I started this podcast was to bring awareness around things that people are going through or, journeys that they've gone through and really just to be like, okay, I'm not alone in this. There's other people who've gone through. I would love to reach out to support them. But I always say this, I think it not even just losing a friend or anybody or a significant other, but anything you going on in your life, whether it's divorce or you lost a child or you're going through a career change, like find community that people are going through the same thing because I think it's so um it just feels so good and motivating to like be around a space that people are going through the same thing and you guys can like help support each other and be in the same part of life.
I totally agree. And for me, is you reach out to me on Facebook, reach out to me on Instagram and on my website, and I'm I might have answers. If not, then maybe we can find answers together.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about your book though, because you said you have a book and it's so
Oh
cool
yeah.
because everyone that's on my podcast has a book except for me, but I will someday. I want to hear about your book.
Okay, this is my book. It's called Grid, and it's about a person that loses their life, their husband in a wildfire. And you would think that it's a sad book, but it's not. It's a very interesting book because it's about two types of survival. It's about survival from losing your spouse and moving on, as well as surviving in the wilderness. So, in the back of the book, I have survival tips for a bug out bag for your pets or for yourself for a survival out in the wilderness. And then this book talks about being a survival person after losing the loved one of your life. And it can be found, on Amazon, and it's an Audible book as well. And it's not exactly about grief, but it is about grief.
Mhm.
And it memorializes him because he was a search and rescue survivalist.
I love that. Well, I will definitely put a link on how they can find your book because I think that's
Okay.
really cool and would love to support you. I have one last question for you. I know it sounds like you've always been out in the wilderness and that's just been like a part of you that's always just been in your life. I've been doing women's retreats and doing more, outdoor activities and being grounded with nature and hugging a tree and really embracing it. Do you feel when you are out in nature that you're connected to your husband?
I am.
Hmm.
I know he's around me.
Hmm.
I know that he's there walking right next to me, or, somewhere close by.
Hmm.
And I think he even talks to my new dog.
So cute.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing your story. I know sometimes having like reliving some of that is always hard. But sometimes most people are like, that was very therapeutic, and I feel really good after like being able to talk about it. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, and being open to diving into some hard parts of the journey. But I love the work you're doing, and I can't wait to continue to see where you go.
Oh, thank you so much. I really